B12, and there is kind of integration between these molecules from the point of view of metabolism. في تداخل بينهم بعمليات الميتابوليزم since one of them is requiring the presence of the other one during this process. So mainly we are going to focus on these two, let me say, micronutrients or vitamins or molecules that are required for the hematopoietic process. That's why we are discussing these two molecules. So the first one, as you might know, is called folic acid, and sometimes it's called tetrahydrofolate or folate. هلا الفوليك اسيد والفوليت اللي هو synonyms للhydrated، هو مش hydrated، hydrogenated one or dehydrogenated one or protonated one or unprotonated one. الفرق بين الاسيد لما نقول folic acid or folate molecules. So but the difference between اللي هو الفوليك اسيد او فوليت من جهه والتتراهيدروفوليت من جهه ثانيه انه الفوليك acid as it's a native molecule, it's not active one. The active one is the tetrahydrofolate molecule. So there is a process of activation of folic acid by our liver enzymes in order to be active one. So this is the major difference between the folic acid molecules itself and the tetrahydrofolate, اللي هو active molecule. So basically you have to know the basic structure of the folic acid, which consists of what's called pyridine derivative or derivatives, because we could have more than one derivative of these molecules, and what's called this small p, not capital P, it's called PABA, or 4-aminobenzoate or benzoic acid molecule that are conjugated with the glutamate. So it consists of 3 molecules, and these 2 molecules are called thyroic acid. Thyroic acid لأنه فيها pyridine derivatives and it has acidic behavior, that's why it's called thyroic acid. So totally, with the glutamate or more molecules, it will form what's called folic acid molecule. Okay? And the folic acid is required for the hematopoietic process, and it requires vitamin B12 action, or the vitamin B12 is required for the preparation of the folic acid or activation of the folic acid. And the deficiency of the folate or vitamin B12 usually goes with what's called macrocytic anemia. Macrocytic anemia means that the MCV of the of the red blood cells will be big due to the deficiency of these molecules. And the pathological or pathophysiological explanation of this انه ليش بصير عندي macrocytic anemia؟ حدا بيعرف؟ ليش الوايت بلاد سيلز ريد بلاد سيلز بصيروا كبار؟ هو في انيميا، بس مع الانيميا في لارج ريد بلاد سيلز. لا مش عشان امتحنكم اسالكم، بس حد بيعرف يعني. اوكي هلا السيل بتغير المورفولوجي تبعها لاسباب كثير. بتتخيل السيل نفسها ليش بتكبر؟ It's trying to compensate by increasing the process of or the DNA size or synthesis of the DNA. فالمشكلة هون بتصير إنه أنت فيش عندك supplements to supply the synthesis of the DNA, so it will be enlarged as a cell in order to compensate the problem of the deficiency of these things. We'll discuss that. أو أعتقد اللي بعد pathology will discuss the pathophysiology of the deficiency of these, let me say, vitamins. So generally, the folic acid molecule itself, or folate, is anion molecule made up of 3 components, as we mentioned before, and it plays a major role in what's called 1-carbon metabolism. كلمة 1-carbon هي رح تقرأوها كثير إذا بتقرأ عن metabolism للهوموسيستين أو الأمينو acids أو other molecules in the body. It means that you are transferring carbon molecule or carbon atom from one molecule to another in order to build up or to make new metabolites. رح نطلع على بعضهم هذول. بس الكي وورد هون اللي هي 1-carbon metabolism. It means that you are transferring carbon from one molecule to another, and it requires the presence of the folic acid. And that's why it's essential for the biosynthesis of certain molecules like amino acids or purines or pyrimidines molecules. The problem with the folic acid goes with the women because it's related to the neurological disorders or what's called spina bifida, if you know, or neural tube defects that are came with the infants or the newborns, and that's why it goes with the women. لانه السبب الرئيسي انه الومن هي اللي بتحمل وهي اللي بتكون الاعراض ظاهره في المستقبل على the newborns, and it's associated with alcoholics or alcoholism. الفوليك acid basically when it comes to be active form or tetrahydrofolate رح نناقش هذا الموضوع متى بصير active form, but when you have or once you have the active form you have many options to build up many other molecules. هلا واحد راح يبعث لي على الايميل او على الماسنجر انه السلايد هذا حفظ هذول المولكيولز، اكيد مش حفظ. Just to know that you have different metabolites, could be for example 5 formyl, it means that you have formyl group on the carbon number 5 or group number 5 if you would. 10 formyl tetrahydrofolate, so you have different functional groups in order to generate different structures. As you can see, you have here CH, CH3, CH2, CH and so on. So all of the time you have carbon. هلا carbon مش ضروري تكون لوحدها. It could be like formyl group or form idene بسميهم group or methyl or methylene. So you have many options to carry the carbon. الكربون ما بتنشال لوحدها. It will be transferred as a functional group. So this is kind of conversion of the tetrahydrofolate to other metabolites once they have the carbon. لما بيجيبوهم مكان ما. For example, these are the sources of the carbon that might be used by tetrahydrofolate. إذا كان عندك serine أو glycine أو choline for example, they will form methylene tetrahydrofolate. ما بيهمنيش تعرف الميثيلين structure now. Just to know that you have sources of carbons like or formate. All of these molecules are sources of the carbon that will be used by the tetrahydrofolate either by forming methylene or methanol or formyl or formamino. All of these molecules will be used to synthesize other molecules. For example, they are very important for purine synthesis. Okay, بغض النظر هو من وين جاي الفورميل. ممكن يكون من الفورميل أو من other derivatives of the tetrahydrofolate. Or thiamine, for example, required for the DNA synthesis. Or for other amino acids like the methionine and serine. Or generation of dihydrofolate. This is another story. You are converting tetrahydrofolate to the dihydrofolate and then reuse it again. So the point is that you have sources of carbons that will be given to the tetrahydrofolate molecule, and then they will form other metabolites that are required for many functions. ممكن يكون جزء منهم amino acids, ممكن جزء منهم مهم لل DNA أو RNA أو nucleic acid synthesis. The things that you have to know is absorption and transportation of the folic acid. For example, they are absorbed by the jejunum and blood transportation by what's called beta globins. It requires a transportation system in the bloodstream, and they need liver convergent coenzymes, and they are stored in the body. So all of the time they are going to be metabolized or converted from one molecule to another. In order to have folic acid in its active form, you have to have microorganisms and have to have human enzymes, and sometimes they can be replaced by microorganisms or plants. The plants can form active forms or can metabolize folic acid. Okay? But we are talking about the human again. So the microorganisms are required to prepare what's called folic acid because the enzymes are there. We have what's called dihydrofolate, what's called synthase enzyme, that is a bit of microorganisms that is conjugating glutamate with the derivatives of pyridine حكينا عنهم, as well as the papa molecule. So collectively you are forming folic acid from these 3 molecules by the action of this enzyme. هلا خلينا نوقف لهون شوي قبل ما انطلق للactivation of the folic acid. Here we have a molecule which is this one اللي هو sulfonamide molecules, وهم عبارة عن مجموعة كبيرة من antimicrobial agents. If the individual is using these molecules he is kind of inhibiting the synthesis of the folic acid. So this is another indirect way of folic acid deficiency or folate deficiency, using of sulfonamides as antimicrobial agents or antibiotics that will inhibit the action of this enzyme, which will result in the deficiency of the folic acid. This is one action. Okay. The other thing is the folic acid itself needs to be activated, and we have here two steps, not one step, and I will show you these two steps in order to convert the folic acid to the active form اللي هو tetrahydrofolate that will be used, as we mentioned before, other molecules or to metabolize other molecules like synthesis, purine synthesis, thymidine, and eventually we are either DNA or RNA synthesis. So you need this active molecule, and this process is reduction process. That's why it needs what's called dihydrofolate reductase enzyme. A reduction process requires reducing agent. Reducing agent ركز دائما فيها هاي as a keyword. الانابوليزم لما نحكي عن بناء and you need reducing agent, it's always an ADPH. تمام؟ تختلف عن NADH molecule. NADH is electron carrier, has other functions. بيقولوا على electron transport chain. So when we talk about metabolism and reductase enzyme, in this case, we have this reducing agent, and it's a reversible reaction, by the way. Here, they discovered that we have what's called methotrexate, إذا سامعين فيه, as an inhibitor of this dihydrofolate reductase enzyme. هو dihydrofolate reductase بيحوله من dihydrofolate إلى tetrahydrofolate or tetrahydrofolic acid. Why they are using such kind of drug, or why they are inhibiting the tetrahydrofolate formation? Because they have thought they can prevent neoplastic diseases. Neoplastic diseases معناها malignant diseases or cancer disease. They are trying to prevent the growth of cells اللي هم من ضمنهم cancer cells, because they think or they thought إنه هذول بيعملوا inhibition, or if you inhibit this step, you are inhibiting the purine or thymidine formation, specifically the thymidine or the DNA. So it's kind of indirect inhibition of the cancer by a tetrahydrofolate, let me say, or dihydrofolate reductase inhibition. But they notice إنه في عندنا نوع من resistance to the methotrexate, for example. And this is a trend in cancer treatment, by the way. في مشكلة بالكانسر، عشان هيك بتسمعوا بمصطلح يمكن ما بعرف اسمه فيه personalized medicine or precision medicine or precise medicine. Okay, or individualized medicine. كل مرة بغيروا الاسم لأنه بيكتشفوا إنه each individual needs a specific regimen of treatment. They discovered that some people are resisting this kind of anti-cancer treatment, and there are many actions of resistance. يعني كأنه الكانسر كأنه ما حدش ياخذ على يعني يعمل كود إنه الكانسر بفكر. No, it develops mechanisms in order to survive. بتطور mechanisms عشان تقاوم الدرج. واحدة من الأشياء اللي بتعملها إنه for example they have overexpression or duplication of the gene اللي هو dihydrofolate reductase gene. بدل ما كان عندي 2 copies for example, they notice إنه في عندنا duplication of that gene to overcome the inhibition, and they notice there is overexpression of this enzyme حتى يقاوم. طبعا هذا له explanation, molecular explanation إنه while you are trying to inhibit, the cell finds out another route or way to overcome this inhibition, but it takes time. في بعض الناس يستجيبوا، في بعض الناس يكون عندهم resistance من البداية، وفي ناس during the treatment they will develop resistance. عشان هيك ببلش بعض مرضى السرطان بإنه في response كويس، بعد فترة في عندنا انتكاسة. okay? فعشان هيك في terminology بيستخدموه بالكانسر اللي هو progression free survival. okay? or overall free survival. هذول معناه انه في progression للكانسر صار او ما صارش، انه قديش فترته، صار بعد 3 شهور، بعد 4 شهور او الى اخره، بعد التريتمنت. فهذول الترمينولوجي بيستخدموهم كثير عشان يشوفوا انه في ريزيستنس او ما في ريزيستنس للدرج، وهذا بينطبق على امثله كثير الان موجوده. فنشا علم اسمه الفارماكوجينيتكس اللي هو جزء من الانديفيدواليزد اور بيرسوناليزد اور بريسايز ميديسن. ليش بستخدم الثري تيرمز هذول؟ لانه اول ما بلشوا كانوا يحكوا عن personalized medicine اعتمادا على البيرسونز، بعدين لا صارت الامور precision معناها precise to that individual. Anyways, so here we found out, or we can think about, let me say, outside of the box. انه في antimicrobial agents or antibiotics could cause folic acid deficiency, or I can inhibit the folic acid metabolism in order to treat cancer, for example, or other diseases like psoriasis. Okay, اللي هو نوع من انواع الاوتوميون disease اللي هو الصدفيه عند بعض الناس, or rheumatoid arthritis. So I'm trying to prevent the division of the cells. هلا هاي الخطوه اللي حكيت عنها هون اللي بتصير بالهيومن بالليفر contains or consists of two steps. First of all, بعد ما انت حصلت على الفوليك acid microbial enzyme, the folic acid will be converted to dihydrofolate or dihydrofolic acid, the same thing. And this is the first action of the enzyme, and this is the second one. Methotrexate inhibits the two steps. So the two molecules are catalyzed by the same enzyme, and eventually you are using the active form in order to synthesize whatever you want inside the body. So here is another action of the anti-cancer treatment thoughts. احنا كنا حكينا عن انه انا بعمل inhibition للدihydrofolate reductase, for example, by methotrexate enzyme or methotrexate treatment. Here we have another option that prevents the activation or formation of the thymine itself pathway. It has nothing to do with the tetrahydrofolate or dihydrofolate reductase enzyme. This molecule, which is called 5-fluorouracil, and I thought you maybe heard about this molecule, that interferes with the what's called N5 N10 methylene tetrahydrofolate transferase action, or thymidylate synthase molecule that is required for the synthesis of thymidine. So you are preventing the formation of thymidine by prevention of the action or the transfer of the carbon to the uracil in order to form the thymine. So in either way you are preventing the DNA formation or replication of the DNA, لأنك ما تخلي له البريكورسور الضروري لهذا الموضوع اللي هو الثايمين أو الثايمين. Usually the problem with the folic acid came with the development of spina bifida or anencephaly, اللي هو due to the deficiency of the folic acid, let me say, supplement. And the prevalence in the United States is quite high, 4,000 per year. And I had a chance, and this is the difference between the normal and anencephaly, for example, and spina bifida development. And here is one of the cases that you might see in the hospitals due to the deficiency of folic acid. And again, it's associated with, alcohol consumption and maybe fortification في عندنا genetic causes. صار معي وقت انه اطلع على كنت بدور على الاردن بس لقيت انه في عندنا هذا الموقع اللي هو Center for Spina Bifida Prevention وهو sponsored by Emory University, وحاطين قائمه الدول. انا كنت بدور على الاردن بس حاطين الميدل ايست كله وحاطين بعض الدول والاحصائيات. عدد الولادات شوي غريب بالنسبه لي، ما بعرف ليش. عندنا 216,000 ولاده لانه هذا ابديتد بال 2022 صحيح. وفي عندنا هون تقريبا البريفالنس للنيورال تيوب ديفكت 3.3 per 1,000. Okay, well, not high but it's not satisfying number. يعني كل 1000 ولاده في عندنا 3 حالات تقريبا بلس عندهم نيورال تيوب ديفكت or something. اذا بنطلع هون على annual cases of FAPS اذا بدك تسميها اللي هو الفوليك اسيد preventable بسموه سباينا بيفيدا، اعتقد عندنا عدد لا باس فيه من الكيسز بالاردن. ف I don't know انه اذا الارقام هاي فعلا دقيقه بس هاي ريجستري رسميه. So this is what we have in Jordan annually. هلا هذول البريفنتد اوكي وهذول البريفنتبل if you would. And this is the fortification, let me say, يسموها consumption of the fortification of the folic acid نتيجة السبلمنت اللي بيوصفوها أطباء أو طبيبات النسائية للنساء الحوامل. So there is awareness and still we have some cases that appear every year of these diseases that can be prevented. هلا بالadult megaloblastic anemia is the common disease that is associated with the folic acid deficiency or vitamin B12 deficiency, and this is the difference between the megaloblastic bone marrow cells, for example, and this is the normal bone marrow cells. And you can see the difference between the cells or the blood cells from the point of view of the size, for example, and it's kind of anemia. عشان هيك بسموها megaloblastic anemia because you have mega cells. In the literature لأنه بيسوى الواحد أحيانا يطلع على الأشياء اللي parallel with the texts. For example, they found that at high dose supplementation of the folic acid, for example, more than 0.8 milligram per day, there is a risk of cancer or reduced risk of cancer. It's kind of controversial issue. عشان هيك حطيتها هون. And there is no clear answer or clear conclusion. It's associated with the development of cancer or preventing the cancer itself. So nothing very clear, and it's one of the questions you might answer as a researcher, student as a researcher. انك بتدور على شغله زي هاي انه الفوليك acid is associated with cancer or preventing the cancer. So there is no clear answer for this conclusion. هلا deficiency للfolate itself could be the pregnancy due to the consumption or multiple pregnancies. Absorption process is defective. Certain drugs like antimicrobial agents, hemolytic anemias, dietary deficiency because they are not fortified or the diet is not fortified, or something called folate trap. Folate trap, the folate is not recycled again to be active. This is what's called folate trap. عشان هيك الفوليت مرتبط بالبي 12. Okay. We have a process of methionine synthesis that relies on the homocysteine, for example. And here we have methionine synthase enzyme that requires vitamin B12, and it has to be methylcobalamin structure. وبالمناسبة vitamin B12 له أكثر من structure. واحد منهم اسمه methylcobalamin. So generally, cobalamin is the word that is used to describe vitamin B12. بالعادة لما نقول vitamin B12 معناها نقول cobalamin. في مركبات بتنضاف أو مجموعات على الكوبالامين وبصير اسمه methylcobalamin or adenosylcobalamin or hydroxy or cyano. It depends شو المجموعة اللي بضيفها. But basically it's cobalamin structure. And there is a process of, or the one carbon carrier that is required to convert the homocysteine to methionine. بده كربون، هذا الكربون جاي من N5 methyl tetrahydrofolate، بتحول لتتراهيدروفوليت مولكيول. Okay? Assume انه هذه الباثوي blocked either by the deficiency of the enzyme or deficiency of vitamin B12. So there will be no generation of the tetrahydrofolate in this process, and it will be trapped as methyl tetrahydrofolate. This is called tetrahydrofolate trap or folate trap. So folate trap is associated with the deficiency either of the methylcobalamin or vitamin B12 or the methionine synthase enzyme if it's mutated, for example. هلا المانيفستيشنز المرتبطة بالfolate deficiency reduce DNA synthesis. That's why we are using certain drugs to inhibit folate metabolism عشان أوقف DNA replication أو synthesis لأني بزعم إنه ممكن يأثر على الكانسر cells. Macrocytic anemia, there will be enlarged cells. Homocystinemia, there will be increase of the homocysteine level. And this molecule, by the way, is another subject you could do a research. وعلى الأقل تعمل فيه literature review. مش عارف الواحد أخذ نوت هيك لأنه بعد شوية ترى بالسنة الخامسة والسادسة راح تدخل في مأزق. إن شاء الله ما تدخل فيه. اللي دخلوا فيه طلاب سادسة لأنه عندهم مشاريع تخرج. وفي عليه علامات. صارت الأمور serious. يعني لما تكتب لواحد ميجر ريفيجن وبده يتخرج، ميجر ريفيجن معناها بده يرجع يشتغل من اول وجديد، وصارت معنا حالات للطلاب. فعلى الاقل انك تعمل ريفيو، يعني واحد من الاشياء اللي انت خلال السنوات القادمه ممكن تشوفها وممكن تعمل عليها ريسيرش. حكينا عن الانتيبيوتيك يوز للفوليك اسيد فور اكزامبل، الترابينج if you would الميوتيشنز هذول، او على سبيل المثال الهوموسيستينيميا، الهوموسيستين ميتابوليزم لايش مهم؟ They also assume انه or reported ان الهوموسيستين له علاقه الميوكارديال infarction أو atherosclerosis أو cardiovascular disorders. So you could make a review وتنشر وتجيب citation كويس. هلا ايش بقول review؟ لأنه ما عندناش احنا يعني للأسف infrastructure للريسيرش as a basic research. يا إما بنعمل survey أو بنعمل بالنهاية زي questionnaire أو مروا على ال AI chat وبنكتب. جتنا بيبر مكتوب على ال AI. Birth defects, as we described before. Cancers has some doubts إنه في عندنا cancer association with the folic acid or no. This is the normal level of the folic acid in the adults, for example. Cobalamin. Cobalamin, as I mentioned before, هو اسم آخر للفيتامين B12 لأنه the basic structure is cobalamin molecule. Found only in foods of animal origin. يعني up to date كلهم بيحكوا عن إنه فقط هو متوفر في الانيمال اوريجين. وهذا اللي بيخلي كمان في عند الناس بعض الناس عنده فضول يروح يدور بالجوجل يعني فيتامين B12 بس بالانيمالز فور اكزامبل ما فيش مكان ثاني بنصنع فيه. So you could do a research or search. أنا بعرف في أماكن ثانية. But mainly when we talk about vitamin B12, usually we talk about animal sources of this vitamin because it has exclusive synthesis in the microorganisms that are found in these animals. It requires the presence of the microorganisms. Heat stable, but it's not light stable molecule. Okay? في فرق بين heat stable و light stable. Light إنه sunlight بتأثر عليه أو أي light. هلا heat stable مع الطبخ بتأثرش كثير. بس بعض الدراسات تقول لك إنه لدرجة معينة إنه لا بتغير الستركشر تبعه أو كان be affected. هذا الشكل اللي ممكن يكون ugly. It's simple form or simple structure of the cobalamin or vitamin B12. اللي بدي اياه منك بس تعرف انه الستركشر تبع البي 12 هيك شكله. عباره عن الفور رينجز اللي انت شايفينهم باللون الاصفر مربوطين كل واحد برابطه مع الكوبالت. That's why it's called cobalt امين. الامين جاي من الامين جروبز الموجوده على هذول الرينجز. هلا هاي الرينج اللي تكونت هون شو بسموها كل واحد منهم؟ كوريان رينج وكلها عباره عن كوبالامين رينج. And here we have fifth and sixth bond. For example, in the down or below the plane, we have what's called dimethyl benzidazole or benzimidazole molecule that is conjugated with the cobalt. And here we have, عشان هيك حاطينها باللون الازرق, we have interchanging functional groups. It could be methyl or cyano or deoxyadenosine. فإما بتسميه مثل كوبالامين إذا كانت مثل or cyano cobalamin or 5-adenosine for example or deoxyadenosine cobalamin. شو الفرق بينهم؟ الفرق بينهم بالفانكشنال جروب صحيح بس كيف بتكونوا هذول؟ الميثيل كوبالامين is not meaning naturally in the nature لا but in the body it's formed as well as the deoxyadenosine لأنه لهم فوائد معينة. For example هذا can be stored بالليفر. The other one is in the circulation. So when you measure the cobalamin or the vitamin B12, you are measuring the circulating one. The middle one اللي هو السيانو هو عبارة عن synthesized form. يعني بالمختبر لما نتعامل مع الكوبالامين في عندنا artifacts تطلع اللي هو السيانو كوبالامين. تمام؟ So it's not the natural or the vitamin or the structure of vitamin B12 that you have to take or to, for example, to use. Or can be formed in the body. What we found in our research, something interesting, وهاي البيبر لسه ما نشرت، إنه السيانو اللي كان موجود في الجسم it can replace either the adenosine or deoxyadenosine or methyl to bind B12. So من ناحية competition إذا في عندك cyanide بالبلد it will bind الكوبالامين to form what's called cyanocobalamin. طيب بعدين بصير له urination أو بصير له شو يسموهم releasable form. It will be excreted with the urine. So we hypothesize إنه cyanide if it's in the blood it will cause vitamin B12 deficiency. And when we take a look to the literature, some articles describe the B12 as, or the vitamin B12 as a treatment for cyanide toxicity. واحد من الاشياء اللي لقيناها في الليترشر غريب شويه انه البي 12 يستخدم لحالات التسمم بالسيانايد لانه السيانايد بيرتبط بالبي 12 and it will be released with the urine. Okay, so it means that if you have cyanide, it will capture the B12 and release it from the body. طيب السيانايد من وين بيجي؟ قديش نوكل كرز احنا باليوم؟ يعني انا بجوز من سنوات امبارح دخلته على البيت مثلا قديش نوكل؟ لا احنا نحكي عن شيء له علاقه بالديفيشنسي. بعدين الفيتامين B12 by the way is stored not like the folic acid. Folic acid not stored. Vitamin B12 is stored in the body. ولما يصير عندك deficiency معناها صار depletion. من وين بيجي؟ ما اخذتيش دواء ولا حاولتي عفوا مش لك يعني ولا حد حاول ينتحر ياخذ سينايد. السينايد له توكسيسيتي اخرى على other organs او other compartments. بالارجيله وبالدخان. نسبه التدخين عندنا مرعبه انا بسميها ووصلت لمرحله تقدر توقف التسجيلات مرحله فيها قله ادب بطلوا يحترموا البرايفسي تبعت الناس. انت اذا بتعرف ليش او منزعج منها انت الغلط. يعني هاي قله ادب. القانون جنة على سبيل المثال الدخان مليان بالسيانايد and it might be associated with the cyanocobalamin formation and release from the blood. هذا الجزء الاول اثبتناه يعني we proved انه cigarette smoke is causing conjugation of cyanide with cobalamin. شفناه بالنسبه لهذا الجزء. هلا ضلت تثبت الجزء الاخر انه released by urine ولا لا بس الليترشر بتحكي انه can be released and we'll see an example of this انه B12 released and reabsorbed from the urine system. Okay, so ليش انا ركزت على هاي الاشياء؟ لانه لها علاقه بانه احنا physicians مثلا على سبيل المثال او طبيب او طبيبه لانه البنات بيهاجموني بيقولوا لي انت يعني دائما تحكي عن البنات ليش بارجل؟ ما هو الشباب نفس الشيء بس يعني مرحله تجاوزت اشياء كثيره انه رجل على رجل بالمحلات العامه ومن ارجل كانه يعني طريقه استخدام الارجيله اقلي بيهيفير يا جماعه. يعني على المواصله الواحد طلع بلاد كثيره بس اللي شفته هون ما شفتوش مكان ثاني. او برضه بلاد عربيه نفس الترند يعني بس الفكره انه ما دام انت بتدرس طب او ميديكال ثينكس بسوى انه يعني applying these things. طيب عشان هيك كان زمان يمكن هذا السبب انه وقفوا استخدام السيانوكوبالامين از سبلمنت لانه كانوا يعطوه على شكل تابلتس لانه مور ستيبل وكان يتصنع في المختبر فصاروا يعطوه انجكتبل فورمز اللي هو الهيدروكسي كوبالامين. اذا في فرق بين انك تعطي واحد انجكشن وهيدروكسي كوبالامين وفي انك تعطيه سيانوكوبالامين. اوكي so the cyanocobalamin will be released from the body فبالتالي كانك بتعالجه بولا شيء. هلا why we have vitamin B12 deficiency could be الابزوربشن could be diet source انه ما فيش عندك دايت بدخل فيتامين بي 12 او انه اصلا في مشكله عندك بالابزوربشن للفيتامين بي 12 او عندك مشكله بالترانسبورتيشن اتسلف. ففي عندنا 3 ستيجز. الستيج الاول انه الدايت عندك فيه او ما فيهوش بي 12. اسيوم انه عندك انت بي 12 وهذا البي 12 بالمناسبه بيكون بالعاده مخلوط مع بروتينز او ماسك في بروتينز اللي هم موجودين في الدايت. اتس نوت بيور. وبالتالي البيبسين انزيم اللي هو من الشيب سيلز will cleave البي 12 من البروتينز. لسه هذا الار او اللون البينك اللي هون هو مش البروتينز. الان اللي بدنا نتخيله انه هذا البي في فيجر اوضح من هذا is cleaved from the protein by the action of the pepsin and then we have what's called peripheral cells اللي هم they are releasing الR factor او in another word الR factor هذا بسموه cobalamin or haptocorrin or transcobalamin type 1. فله أكثر من اسم but specifically in the stomach it's called R factor that will bind the B12. Why do we have this factor؟ يعني ليش بيرتبط فيه B12؟ As a kind of protection from the acids that we have in the stomach. Okay? لحد ما يوصل لمرحله او لمكان الجدينم اريا. في هذا المكان في عندنا انزيم ثاني بيشتغل بعد التريبسين اللي هو تريبسين او البروتياسيس بشكل عام. البروتياسيس بتروح بتشيل الار لانه بروتين and it will bind البي 12 بهاي الحاله intrinsic factor، والintrinsic factor اللي هو released برضه from the peripheral cells. And then it will be transported to the luminal cells, or sorry, ileum cells. And inside we have process, I will show it to you, that will release the B12, the lysosomal process. You are degrading the intrinsic factor. And it will be transported in the circulation by transcobalamine transporters. اسمهم transcobalamines. هلا transcobalamines عندنا ثلاث انواع، 1 2 و3. تمام؟ هلا number 1 is found here and in the circulation. Number 2 and 3 is in the circulation. كل واحد له function رح نتطرق له بعد شوي. So to make the story more clear, I think this is the B12 that we have in the food, and it will be transported with the R factor, and the R factor will be released here. Then you have the intrinsic factor that will transfer the B12 to the ileum cells, and then will we have degradation of the intrinsic factor, releasing of the vitamin B12, and then go through the circulation. هذا الdigestive system. هلا if you are intending to deliver the B12 to the liver, you have to have receptors. فعشان هيك في عندنا هذا البلو كلر هو زي بيشبه الانتيبادي. It's a receptor for the transcobalamine protein. Transcobalamine معناها protein بنقول cobalamine. On the other side, in the renal system, you can see, notice that إنه في عندنا tubular cells or tubular channels, there is a release of the vitamin B12 that will be transported back. This is the tubule cells, and this is the lumen. And there is transportation of the B12 through the transcobalamine, again here in the tubular lumen of the renal system. So the body is trying to retrieve or to recover the loss of the vitamin B12 either from the digestive system, which is normal absorption, or from the renal system. And you can imagine if you have a defect in one of these factors, سواء كان the renal system or the liver or the circulation or the digestive system, there will be kind of deficiency of vitamin B12. One of the most common factors اللي هو الدايت. تعدينا الدايت صار الفاكتور اللي بعديه اهميه intrinsic factor deficiency itself، انه مش قادرين احنا نربط مع intrinsic factor and so on. بعدين رحنا باتجاه transcobalamines اللي هم transporters. We could have mutations in these transporters, and we have good publications here from Yarmouk University related to these transcobalamine story and vitamin B12 transportation. فلما نفكر بالdeficiency, you have to think about many steps related to the process of absorption or process of transportation of that molecule. This is how we, for example, activate or convert vitamin B12 to what's called 5-deoxyadenosylcobalamine. It requires the presence of ATP molecule, and for sure we have kinase enzyme that is involving this process. هلا هذا هو الستورج فورم نتكلم عنه موجود في الليفر. So we could have enough amount of vitamin B12. This is another diagram that is showing vitamin B12 binding the intrinsic factor and then transportation to the ileal cells, and inside the ileal cells we have process of the release of vitamin B12 to the circulation. إذا في عندي deficiency هنا بالintrinsic factor like this block, it means that there will be deficiency in the absorption. So the causes of vitamin B12 deficiency could be nutritional, إنه lack in the diet, decrease in the absorption due to the deficiency either in the cobalamin or transcobalamine type 1 or intrinsic factor or these things. What's called adeusian pernicious anemia is another cause of the vitamin B12 deficiency. Gastric atrophy, because you need the action of the acid in order to release the R protein from the B12. Pregnancy, because there is high consumption of vitamin B12, and they found also kind of parasite infection اللي هو fish tapeworm يسموه. developed 3 Bitrium, for example. Laton is kind of parasite اللي هو نوع من انواع الديدان الشرطيه اللي بتيجي مع الاسماك, can also associated with vitamin B12 deficiency. هلا المانيفستيشنز اذا في عندك vitamin B12 deficiency Okay. Could cause folate trap زي ما شفنا بالمثال السابق بالنسبه للفوليت. Megaloblastic anemia as a symptom abnormal homocysteine level, again, it will be hyperhomocystinemia. And it will affect the nervous system by demyelination, for example, or subacute combined degeneration. وهذا بصير عند كبار بالعمر إنه في عندك chronic cases with progressive age بالنسبة للneurological function. Or شيء بسموه achlorhydra. Achlorhydra اللي هو absence of acid in the stomach. أعتقد إنه هو هي العكس بالعكس إنه الachlorhydra هي اللي بتسبب الفيتامين B12 deficiency because it's like the atrophy of the stomach. طيب. طيب مرة جاي نكمل لأنه أعتقد إنه overwhelmed اليوم.